Okay, we are now back on the record, and we are recalling item number 3.
Commissioners, we, based on your input and some advice from other members of county staff, we've added a few items and clarified a few items to the proposed resolution that I presented a little bit earlier in the meeting. I want to walk you through that. The first thing I want you to do, you should have copies, and I note that this is the danger of drafting on the fly, at the bottom of page 1, the last recital there, whereas there are 3 words missing. It should read, El Paso County has taken a leadership position in efforts to address. So if you could insert those 3 words, and I think we have reprinted copies coming that actually reflect that change, and we'll hand them out to you right now, Matt. So with that said, we'll put it on the overhead here. So this is, I believe, the sense that I've received based on your guidance. Whereas the expansion of I-25 through a 17-mile section from Monument to Castle Rock has been identified as a highest priority highway safety improvement project for Colorado. And whereas between 2011 and 2015, there were more than 4,700 accidents, resulting in nearly 1,300 injuries and 13 deaths in that section of highway, including the deaths of 2 Colorado State troopers. And whereas El Paso County citizens understand the importance of expanding this dangerous 17-mile gap with a 3rd lane in each direction to match the existing traffic capacity and configuration at both ends of the gap area. And whereas El Paso County citizens have agreed to help participate in the funding of this critical expansion project with the contribution of local tax revenues to improve a highway which is clearly a primary responsibility of state and federal transportation authorities. And whereas CDOT has provided information to El Paso County indicating that its environmental review process is still in progress, and that it will be assessing the impacts of 3 configuration options, including the impact of doing nothing, the impact of adding a 3rd lane to match the current configuration before and after the gap, and the impact of adding a toll-managed express lane in each direction. Whereas El Paso County was asked to serve as the regional applicant for a federal grant to assist in funding this critical project, and county staff prepared documentation for this federal grant which reflected preliminary design options that were being studied by CDOT, the Colorado Department of Transportation. And whereas El Paso County has taken a leadership position in efforts to address the I-25 gap problem and continues to be strongly in support of the ongoing regional efforts to secure federal and state funding necessary to begin construction as soon as possible. And whereas federal highway funding requirements established through legislation commonly referred to as MAP 21 require CDOT to consider the impact of toll-managed express lanes in connection with any major highway expansion project. And whereas acknowledgement of this requirement was included in the documentation prepared by El Paso County staff for the application to receive a federal infrastructure grant to help fund the I-25 expansion. And whereas the board wishes to make it clear that the acknowledgement of this CDOT policy in the grant application documents does not in any way constitute an endorsement of the 3rd lane managed toll configuration for this project. And whereas El Paso County has willingly taken a leadership role in regional efforts to assure that this serious public safety problem is solved as quickly as possible, and continues to express its willingness to work with CDOT and others throughout the region and the state to complete this important project. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of El Paso County Commissioners of El Paso County, Colorado, opposes the concept of a toll-managed third lane to expand I-25 through the identified gap area. And the board calls on CDOT and its representatives to recognize that configuring the planned third lane expansion of I-25 between Monument and Castle Rock is inconsistent with the configuration at both ends of the gap and would constitute a form of double taxation for El Paso County residents who have already agreed to help pay for this project. So that's, I believe, the input that we received based on your conversations with County Attorney, and that's what we have offered for your consideration.
I'm just going to make a brief comment, then I'll open it up to my colleagues. And we're bringing this forward, based on what I consider irresponsible journalism. And when you're looking at the headlines, and instead of understanding all the facts and bringing it all together, there's a segment of this population that wants to continue to misconstrue and divide this community. So I think it's extremely important to show that this is not a bait and switch with regard to a Tabor question or any sort of way that we are acting outside of the policy guidance that's been dictated to us through previous administrations and through CDOT, and that we're acting squarely in conformance with that. And, just making one brief comment, looking at quotes in a paper that this, and in quotes, that boilerplate language somehow implying that this wasn't part of the normal process and procedure. The evidence that we are putting on clearly shows that we are functioning in accordance with specified policy, and I think it's important for us to, even though we disagree, to make sure that our opinion about this issue is clearly articulated on the record, and that's why this resolution is coming forward. I have stated time and time again my opposition to tolling requirements. El Paso County was designated as a lead agency in doing this. The application was submitted in accordance with the required format, but it's imperative for us to be very clear on where we stand. So any implication by the Gazette and their headlines and the reporter that somehow I've been untruthful or misled, that is unacceptable, and that's why we're here today. But it's more important that we make sure that we capture the intent of the public, because we've clearly heard from the public, and I stand with them with regard to that opposition. So I will open it up to my colleagues for discussion. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the interests in this board in going forward with this resolution. I support the wording and language of this resolution, that this does not in any way constitute an endorsement of the third lane managed toll configurations for this project. This is part of the wording in the resolution. And also that I do believe the county has taken a leadership role in trying to deal with this very, very important project, a project that kills citizens and needs to be resolved with adding a third lane. And that with the wording at the end of the resolution, that configuring the planned third lane expansion of I-25 between Monument and Castle Rock is inconsistent with the configuration at both ends of the gap and would constitute a form of double taxation for El Paso County residents who have already agreed to help pay for this project. I agree with those words, and I look forward to support and a vote for this resolution in the affirmative. Thank you.
And we will also open it up to any public comment. If anybody wants to speak at this point in time, we'll defer that. Please come on down, Deborah.
Commissioners, I had a member of the audience who called to my attention the CDOT policy, which further adds some confusion to this. Back in the first whereas on the second page, we referenced to consider the impact of toll-managed express lanes. The specific CDOT policy reference there does not use the word toll, it simply uses managed lanes.
Yep, thank you. All right, please come up, sign in. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I signed in ahead of time to save some time. Deborah Stout-Meininger, community advocate, citizen scientist. As I explained my concerns previously in the Board of County Commissioners' public comment, that not one word was heard about toll roads, not in the verbiage on the ballot saying we do not support that, saying that we want this expansion to not include toll roads would have been a solid way to put that statement in there. But it concerns me when so many of the Board of County Commissioners say we had no idea that toll roads were even on the agenda with CDOT. And then there was a minor comment that said, well, Mark said in that conversation back and forth at that moment that it was in their future, but he didn't realize it was in the immediate future. It would have been good to put this kind of statement in at a time, in the ballot measure, in the conversations, but it wasn't. And I think that's what's the most upsetting to me and a lot of people I know. Was I part of that article, the articles that have come out in the paper? No. Am I part of a lot of conversations about that? Yes, there was when they were trying to put one out east. There was before. And to say that you all did not know about this option, did one of you not tell the rest that this could be a possibility? I'm sorry, that does not make us feel more secure about these decisions when it looks like the staff didn't tell you all. When you're making up the ballot information, staff, I'm assuming, is involved in that as well. Toll roads have been such an issue in El Paso County, in every city in El Paso County. To say that it's just wasn't that important, or someone decided it wasn't important, whether it was one person, one elected official somewhere along the line, or the entire staff didn't think it was important, as many times as that has been brought up, it makes me feel like that word was excluded out of every single conversation by the people who did know about it, because they knew it might have been the kiss of death if it had been mentioned as one of the 3 options from CDOT in any of those conversations. And at the CDOT meetings, they didn't allow the public to give their opinions as they were led to believe. They were told they would listen to a presentation that nobody could ask questions about afterwards. As a public group, they were sent off to little storyboards with individual people. So they could not share their opinions with the group that was there as far as the public or the CDOT people. That made them even more unhappy. That's like adding fuel to the fire of disappointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this particular issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back up here. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, I'd previously given my comments to CDOT directly against, my opposition to the tolls option. Went to a couple meetings, left notes there with them, and then they also did the online. So if you haven't done the online and you want to provide feedback to CDOT, there's opportunity out there to provide feedback directly to them, and I recommend that the public do that, regardless of what your choice is or options. Please give them that feedback as I did. And so, I've given that to them separately. So we're looking at the resolution here, looked at it. I want to thank the staff and Commissioner Waller for the hard work they're doing. It was some thinking outside of the box, and negotiations. Sometimes they're difficult. Sometimes, you get thrown a curve. We're not always sure what happens. I think negotiations are still going on. And that's why you need to provide feedback to the state, and I strongly recommend that. So in regards to the resolution, I'm supportive of this because it's supporting what I had been saying since I did find out that this was an option. I think we need to oppose the toll lane option or the managed tolls. There's other options out there, and I think we need to work with the state, to get the project done, because as we keep saying, this is the highest priority project, transportation project in the whole state, I believe. At least in my mind it is. And, so we need to work with them to see what we can do. But I think this is a resolution in the, that gives them the message of where we stand in our belief on this. I did have a comment on the second page at the very top, because these negotiations have still been going. There's information, as was mentioned, not everybody knows about, and I too, I was not part of the working group that was negotiating with the state and the federal government on the package. So I was not aware of the MAP 21 requirement and the tolling option as it was presented initially. So, but let's move forward, do what we can, and I think this is the right method of getting information back, as well as, again, asking the public to provide your comments to CDOT directly as you can on an online poll that they are doing.
Anybody else? Commissioner, you wait?
I'll wait.
Did you want?
I guess I was going to wait till go after Commissioner Waller. So.
Commissioner Littleton.
Okay. So looking at I-25, I-25 has not been expanded in any way, shape, or form basically since its inception, since it was actually put in. And it is, I-25 between here and Denver is part of the National Defense Highway System that provides critical defense infrastructure and logistics and support for our military installations in Colorado, of which we have 5 down here. The I-25 corridor is paramount to the national defense as well as our economic health and of the state and of the region. This project, moving forwards with our very firm and solid statement that we are not in favor of toll roads in utilizing this funding, will really help to modernize, to increase capacity, reliability, and safety. It is true that this corridor should not be a toll road because it is a national highway, safety highway for the military. It also doesn't match to put a toll on this particular area where to the north of it there's no tolls and to the south of it there are no tolls. And so in going with what we stated initially from putting the ballot language on, I think we were all pretty clear. I was very clear that I would not be in favor of any tolls moving forward. And so the citizens, I think, can rest assured that we stand by that, and we will ensure to keep working with CDOT to open their eyes to different options as opposed to what they initially proposed as managed lanes.
Commissioner Waller.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we sign up for these jobs not because they're easy, but I think in large ways because they are hard and they are difficult, and they give us the opportunity to challenge ourselves and to make our community a better place to live and work. The thing that has been most disappointing to me in this entire process has been the allegation and accusation that we are in some way doing something for anything other than the right reasons, that we are in some way engaging in some sort of nefarious activity. Here's the reality. This highway, as Commissioner Littleton said, hasn't been expanded since its inception in 1962 when it was built. Denver and Colorado Springs are 2 of the 40 largest markets in America. And because they're 2 of the 40 largest markets in America, and because this highway hasn't been expanded since 1962, we've created the perfect storm here, the perfect public safety storm, in which we have a section of highway that is a significant public safety issue. As the resolution says, more than 4,700 accidents between 2011 and 2015. That's only getting worse. 1,300 injuries and 13 deaths, including 2 state troopers in the Gap section of this highway. You know, I've
said to my colleagues earlier today, this isn't something that we get to do. This is something we have a responsibility to do. We are in the unique position to have the opportunity to create positive public impact moving forward, to get this section of highway expanded for the public safety issues, for the economic issues, and for the military issues. We have a unique opportunity right now because our economy is growing and moving strongly. We have the unique opportunity to have an impact. We also have the capacity to make an impact right now because the economy is growing and moving strong. And I think that means we also have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to the citizens of the state of Colorado, and specifically, we have a responsibility to the citizens of El Paso County to act, and to act now. In short, this is about getting this project done. It has to happen. We don't have the luxury of being able to put this off any further. We don't have the luxury of saying this isn't my responsibility, this isn't my problem. We don't have the luxury, simply put, of inaction. We have to do this, and we have to do it now. A year ago, when we first started talking about this and moving this project along, the estimates were that this project wasn't going to be started for another decade. You know what? A decade of time is too long to have that many more accidents and that many more traffic fatalities to happen. We can't do that. We have to act. And we're in a position now because of all of the hard work that has been done. The hard work by my 4 colleagues up here, the hard work by our incredibly dedicated and well-meaning staff. We have the opportunity to make this happen far quicker and save far many more lives that would have been lost because of the lack of capacity on this highway. We're going to break ground on this time next year. Let me say that again. We're going to break ground on this project this time next year. That is absolutely unbelievable. It is unbelievable that we're able to make this project move that quickly. And again, that's because of all of the dedicated efforts of my colleagues up here, our staff, working with CDOT, working with our other community partners in Colorado Springs, Douglas County, and other places along the corridor. We're getting this done. This is happening. This is a great thing for the citizens of El Paso County. You know, there have been a lot of discussions along the way about tolling, whether we should be doing it, whether we should not be doing it. I've had conversations with CDOT. I've shared willingly over time about should this happen, should it not happen. We had discussions about, well, is this going to be necessary to create the capital construction to move forward with this project? We were able to identify the funds without a tolling provision to get this $350 million section moving forward. In my mind, then, it means we don't need a tolling provision. Well, you know what? We're starting to talk about different options and different ways of moving forward now. I think if we can make 4 lanes happen, that is certainly something we should be looking at. And if that means creative financing in order to get that done, I think we would be irresponsible to reject that outright. And I think that we need to talk about all of the options for financing in that 4th lane. Let me say that, in that single 4th lane, I think it would be irresponsible of us to not talk about all of the options on the table, to include managed lanes, which would also include HOV lanes. I think that we need to look at every opportunity because this problem is only going to get worse. We expand this to 3 lanes now. People will be sitting here probably less than a decade from now talking about the need to expand it. Once again, I think we need to take every opportunity to do this project, do it right. I think that's exactly what we're doing. I am proud, incredibly proud, to be a small part of the El Paso County team that is taking the leadership on this project and making sure it gets done, not just for El Paso County, but for all of southern Colorado. I think, once again, we have done yeoman's work in order to make this happen. Certainly, I think the board president has done a tremendous amount of work to make this happen, and I appreciate all the effort that is put in. I know he's taken some darts right now, and I think undeservedly so. I appreciate tremendously all that our staff has done to make this project happen, and I, quite frankly, appreciate all of the effort that has come forward from our community partners as well. We need to not lose focus of what the end goal is here, and the end goal is expanding this highway to make sure we reduce traffic fatalities in the state of Colorado. We are on the precipice of getting this done, and we need to continue moving forward.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just, for the record, I believe this is a critically important project. I support the efforts and applaud the efforts of my fellow commissioners and the staff of El Paso County. And for the record, I do not support toll lanes for this. I am also interested in the concept going forward in a realistic and deliberate dialogue with CDOT about possibly a fourth lane. I like that idea. I think in the long run it actually may be very important for that section of road. I also would like everyone to know that I have asked CDOT for additional public input opportunities with regard to the toll lane concept, and I think we need to have that public input presented to CDOT, and I do look forward to CDOT offering those opportunities for additional public input. So I will go forward here with my colleagues with regard to this resolution, and I appreciate all the work that everybody has done. Thank you.
Any further comments before I make some? Well, again, I think it's critically important for us to have this discussion and this resolution. And, I applaud. I think it's extremely important for the media and everybody else to hold people accountable. But there's also a responsibility to be correct and accurate. And what was not portrayed was the fact that we actually followed the policy as dictated to us. But it's important for us to make sure that while we have to follow the policy in order to file this particular grant application, if we have a strong opinion that's in conflict with that, or at least wants to clarify a particular point, especially with regard to toll lanes and managed lanes, this is our opportunity to do that. So again, I'm bringing this up because we have maintained, this board has maintained that we have opposed tolling with regard to that third lane. The intent of going to that ballot, there is no way where we are asking this community to support tolling. So the argument that was out there that this was a bait and switch is something that must be addressed, because there is nothing more important for us than maintaining the trust of the public. And it's extremely important for our press to get it right instead of going off half-cocked and coming up with a story that's not true when it comes to the entire story. Let's clearly reflect what is the intent of this board. Let's clearly reflect the constraints that we were under with regard to applying for this grant and respect that. This board is absolutely committed to carrying out the will and intent of the voters, and that's extremely important. So I applaud my colleagues for agreeing to clarify this particular issue, because the word boilerplate, when it's referenced in the article in quotes, when you read the article, and it gives the implication that somehow we're not informed and that we're laying blame on someone else, is just not accurate. And there comes a time when you need to call it like it is and be on the record clearly defining what your position is, and that's what we're doing today. Any further discussion before we vote? Was there actually a motion? Yeah, okay, I don't believe there was a motion, so we need a motion to approve this.
I'd like to move that we approve the resolution declaring opposition to tolling on third lane expansion from I-25, of I-25 from Monument to Castle Rock.
I'll second.
Okay. I will call the roll. Commissioner Littleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderworth.
Aye.
Commissioner Waller.
Aye.
And the president votes aye. That passes unanimously.